Hey folks, I just wanted to quickly make a little video here today to chat with you just about a couple things that I think will make things a little bit easier for you. So I wanted to talk today about finding peer-reviewed journal articles and some APA style basics for the purposes of this course. So really today we're just going to cover those big questions. So first, what is a peer-reviewed article? Where do you find them? What is APA style? And where can you get further help with APA style? Because it's going to be one of those things that you're going to need over the course of this course. So it'd be helpful for you to know where you can find those resources. So first of all, what is a peer-reviewed article? Well, when we're talking about peer review is actually a process where you subject your scholarly work, your research, or your ideas to others who are experts in the same field. So how that works in real life is this, right? So let's say I conduct a study, I do some research. Well, then I'm going to write an article and I'm going to send it to the editor of a scientific journal. This editor is then going to take that copy of my article and he's going to take my name off of it and then send it to 2 or 3 different reviewers out there who are experts in the field. These people are going to critique my article, and then they'll vote either to accept it as it is, accept it with some minor revisions, or just reject it outright if there are big issues that they've identified with it. And then they'll send their information to the editor. The editor will give me a call back and say, hey, we're going to accept or reject. And then the article will either be published or it won't be published. Now, the reason we use peer review in the scientific community is because peer review serves as a filter to ensure that any content that's being produced is original, it's valid, and it's also significant in terms of what it's contributing to the field. Another kind of goal behind peer review is to improve the quality of manuscripts, of the articles that are written, so that we are presenting high quality stuff out there and publishing high quality stuff. Now, the challenge comes for university students in determining what is and what isn't peer-reviewed. So, things that aren't peer-reviewed would include things like Wikipedia and any other kind of wikis that you can find online. Newspaper articles are not peer-reviewed. They are not reviewed by experts in the field to determine that the things are factual. They may be reviewed by the newspaper editor, but the goal behind a newspaper article isn't necessarily to present things from a completely objective, unbiased perspective. It's to tell a story. The same holds true with magazine articles. Magazine articles are not subjected to peer review. They are not subjected even to editorial boards in many cases, but they are also designed to argue a particular side or present a particular picture without necessarily attending to whether everything in it is factual or not. Another important thing to remember is opinion pieces, even if they are found in a scientific journal, because sometimes they are there, those are not considered peer-reviewed articles. Okay? They are also not subject to experts from outside saying like, yes, we have vetted this opinion and we agree with it. So opinion pieces, even if it's in a scientific journal, is not considered a peer-reviewed article. And surprisingly, encyclopedia entries also don't fall into that peer review category. Now, usually an encyclopedia entry has been reviewed by people that do have some expertise in the field, but again, it's not always gone through the process of peer review in and of itself. So that's another kind of thing to keep in mind for. So, using an encyclopedia entry to kind of define a topic or to present a basic idea about something is helpful, but in and of itself, it should not be used as something to argue for a particular stance. So where do you find peer-reviewed articles then? So do not do a Google search for information. So when you're writing your discussions for this class or a paper for another class, don't just Google, whatever your topic is and then hope, that you're going to find peer-reviewed articles. Even if you do find some websites out there that may seem like they are fairly reputable, that does not count as a peer-reviewed thing. So the only place where you will find peer-reviewed articles are in the library. So having said that, why don't we go ahead and take a look in the library where we would find this. So if we go over here, to our pause tab, and we go then to the library over here, we'll click search the library. And then we'll take a little look in here. Now let's say I want to research my topic. Now let's say my topic today is cyberbullying. So I'll type in cyberbullying. Perfect. All right. Let's see what happens here. All right. So perfect. So we're pulling up a whole bunch of different articles here and things. So in this particular thing, there's a kind of a truncated range. So let's say I want to see what's going on from 2000 to 2020. Oh, and also it's important, if you spell things incorrectly, you don't get the things you want to get. So let's try that again. Perfect. Here we go. I was thinking there should be a little bit more. So here we go. So we've got ourselves over 27,000 articles. Okay, so that's quite a few to go through, and probably none of you are super stoked about having to do that for an assignment. So what we want to do then is we want to refine kind of our topic. So we can say cyberbullying, and let's say I'm interested in seeing amongst college students how much cyberbullying there is. So let's go ahead and we'll do this. And then we find, oh man, okay, so we went from 7,000 peer-reviewed articles to only 2,187, so this is a little bit better, but you know, we'll still probably want to refine this a little bit more. Well, having this information then, we can now go ahead and kind of look at some other stuff. So I'm going to just pull up this article here because I'd like to talk about APA style for a minute, and I'd like for you to be able to see what I mean when I'm talking about APA style and where to find that information on a journal article. All right, so we'll pull this up and we'll come back to this in just a minute. I'm going to just quickly go back to the PowerPoint here. All right, so peer-reviewed articles are only going to be found through the library, so make sure that you look for it through there, okay? Another useful resource for you when you're talking about searching the library is for you to go to click on this tab, this More tab, and if you look here, you can see there are a whole bunch of different library resources. One of the library resources you should be aware of is under here, under Research Guides, and then scrolling down to Psychology, because that's the discipline that we're in. You can find the Psychology Research Guide, and in here you will find some videos, you'll find some tutorials, and you'll find some really helpful information about how do you find articles for psychology. So we use PsycInfo. That's a huge database that contains all the psychology articles your heart could desire. But you'll have to watch this video here, and you can find out how to use that. It's basically the same principles as the search the library function, except for you have a few more options, and you just have access to all of the things within psychology, which makes it a little bit easier than just kind of doing a blind search through the library. Okay, so here you go. This is where you this is what you want to do. Okay, all right. Going back here for a minute to APA style. APA style is the style that it's the prescribed way that we write and we cite within most of the social sciences. So you'll find psychology, sociology, education, they all use the same style. So it's important for you to know APA style because you will likely use it in the future. On a probably biased opinion, I think APA style is probably one of the easier ways to write and to cite. However, there are other people that may disagree with that. APA style was created by the American Psychological Association. That's where we get the APA from. And it's now in its 7th edition. So the new edition came out in 2019, so it's fairly new, but it's a good time to learn it because there's no massive changes that are going to be coming up in the future. So there's some general rules that are important for you to know about for APA, and really the big one is that we use in-text citations. So when we cite an article, we're citing it within the text that we are writing. Okay, so if we're citing for 1 or 2 authors, we list both authors each time, followed by the year. If it's 3 or more authors, we use et al. Okay, so let's go back to this journal article for a minute here. There we go. Okay. So let's take a little look here. So in this particular article, that has just disappeared from me. There we go. We've got ourselves 2 authors. We have Gibb, last name, and Devereaux. So in the context of citing this particular article, I would write Gibb, ampersand, Devereaux, and then comma 2014. That's the year that this article was published in. Now, if you take a look in here, you can also see that they themselves are using in-text citations, right? So here they're citing Tokunaga, 2010. Here's two authors, Slonier and Smith, in 2008. Here they are citing multiple ones. Now this is a former, an older APA style where you'd used to list them out. But now if it's three, you just say, Calvete et al. 2010. Okay. Another really important thing to remember for APA style and for university writing in general is that you want to avoid direct quotations whenever possible. In APA style specifically, the goal is to paraphrase ideas, all right? Now, paraphrasing doesn't mean that you get away from citing. You have to make sure that you cite every person's ideas. So even if you're writing it in a completely different way, but it really is that person's idea, you are still going to make sure that you cite the idea where it came from. Okay. Another important thing about APA is that you will need a reference list. And in general, there are different rules depending on the type of medium you're using. But for a journal article, it will always follow this type of kind of outline. So we'll start with the author's last name and then initials, the date, which is in brackets, the title of the article, which is usually lowercase letters other than proper pronouns. The journal name will always be in using capitalization that's appropriate. The volume number for the journal is in italics. Then you put the page range, and then this DOI. Let me quickly just go back to this article so I can show you these things. So in this particular case, what we would be doing is we would write the citation for this article as Gib, Z. G. Then we would go and Devereaux, P. G. Then in brackets we would put the year that this was published. So we can see here at the top, this article was published in 2014. So we would put, open bracket, 2014, close bracket, period. Then we would write the name of the article. In that case, it would be this. Who does that anyway? Predictors and personality correlates of cyberbullying in college. And we'd put a period right there. Pop. Then we would put the journal name. In this case, Computers in Human Behavior. Now this would all be in italics. We'd put a comma. And then we would put the volume number. So where do you find the volume number? Well, there's a couple places. In some articles, you'll find it here at the bottom. In this particular article, we can find it right here at the top. It's 38, volume number 38. So you'd put Computers in Human Behavior, comma, 38, which is also in italics, comma, and then we put the page range. You can find the page range at two places. On this particular article, you can find it here. It's pages 8 to 16. But you can also find it just by looking at the actual pages. They usually are also marked. So oftentimes the first page is not, but the second one is. So we can assume that it starts at page 8. And then if we go all the way to the end, great, we can see it ends on page 16. Okay. So after we put the page range, 8 to 16, then we put a period, and then we put something in what's called a DOI. A DOI is a digital object identifier. And a DOI is a way that we can quickly and easily get to a website where an empirical article is. And so normally what you would do is you would just put in, you would write capital D, capital O, capital I, and then you put in a colon, and then you normally write in this number here, the 10.1016 / whatever. Okay, that is the DOI. Now you can also just put in HTTP, colon, //dx.doi.org, and this whole hyperlink just like that. That is okay to do as well. So you can either write DOI and then just these numbers here, or you can just write, this whole bit here and throw that in there. Okay, so that would be how you cite this particular article in APA. Now, another important thing just to mention here is that APA really stresses using person-first language. So what that means is we want to use non-discriminatory language whenever possible. So we talk, for example, of people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia versus saying, 300 schizophrenics were in my sample. Okay, so we want to use language where we're putting the person first and not, pointing out necessarily disability or mental disorder or any kind of pathological thing first. Okay, so when we're writing, we want to make sure that we're writing in a non-discriminatory fashion. Okay, so these are just kind of 4 little basic rules about APA format. Now, the big question obviously is, where do I get more help if I need more help with APA? Because using those 4 rules, you'll have a bit of a framework, but they're still kind of the nuts and bolts question. There are 3 places for you to take a look at, and those would be the APA Style blog, Purdue OWL APA Formatting and Style Guide, and then as well through the University of Saskatchewan, the DEU Writing Center. Now let me just take a little moment here and we'll show you this. The APA Style blog is the blog developed by the American Psychological Association, which where you can kind of look at kind of all of the style and grammar guidelines, where to use what and when to use it. Okay. So it's a useful little source there. Another one is just going to OWL Purdue. So OWL Purdue is the online writing lab at Purdue University. And they have a really, really nice APA guidelines thing. And so here you can go and you can take a look and you can see, all right, so what's the general format? How do I do in-text citations? What about footnotes? What about reference list? What about citing other types of sources? How do I use numbers, statistics, all of that stuff, okay? This is a great, easy place to find that information, so go there as well. The other thing I want to point out to you is that the University of Saskatchewan has a writing center for distance education students, and really the goal of this site is, or this program is not necessarily to help you with kind of the nuts and bolts of APA style, but to review assignments that you have and give you constructive feedback for how to do better. So there's a submission process here, so find that out, and then you can go ahead and do that. So I would highly advise this, especially for papers that you've been working on for a while. You want a second opinion, those would be great places for you to kind of look at that. Now, I want to also just mention that the resources that I've mentioned here, the APA Style blog and Purdue OWL, you will find links to these sites on Canvas. So if you go to Canvas and you look under the Files tab, you will find there that there is an APA Basics guide for you with a few links to a few places to help get you started. All right, as always, if you have more questions, feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, have yourself a great day.